Pranav Venkatesh. Memorize this name. Pranav is the chess prodigy from India and he's only 16 years old. Yesterday, Pranav played an outstanding, really brilliant title Tuesdays on chess.com. He finished on the third place, but he finished with the same point count like the winner Hikaru Nakamura and Alireza Firouzja, who finished on the second place. All three of them had 9.5 points out of 11 rounds, which was really, really incredible. So Pranav only had one draw and one loss, and he won 9 games in such an elite level of chess. Look at this, how the standings were. Katakamsky finished on the 4th place, but look at this. Magnus Carlsen, the world champion in chess, finished on the 5th place. Eric Hansen, who is always a great player in this title Tuesdays, finished on the 6th place. Duda, who is a great tactician, for instance, finished on the 7th place. So Pranav was on the 3rd place, which is really, really incredible when you think about it. Harder, really incredible performance. And what also happened yesterday, Pranav beat the world champion Magnus Carlsen with an epic performance, with a really beautiful, sharp tactical game. So that's the game that we're covering now, Pranav versus Magnus Carlsen. It was a spectacular game, in my opinion, one of the best games from yesterday's title Tuesdays on chess.com. So let's see now the game. E4 was Pranav's first move. We have E5 by Magnus, knight to F3, knight to C6, bishop to B5. The Ruy Lopez, the Spanish game, is on the board. We have the Murphy defense with the move A6, bishop to A4, knight to F6, hitting the pawn on E4. Kingside castling. If you pick up, of course, the pawn, there are some tactical threats, of course, on the E file. So it's still playable line, of course. But here Magnus goes into the closed Spanish game with the move E7, bishop to E7. So now D3 here played by Pranav, which is now the so-called Martinez variation. In the continuation, we have now B5 and after bishop to B3, castling played by Magnus Carlsen. Knight to C3. Occupying the d5 square. Usually you are trying maybe to get this kind of idea with c3 d4. You're trying maybe to break and enter like this, play rook to e1, but then you risk maybe to go into this martial gambit with the move d5, so black could maybe launch the martial attack with the move d5. So that's why with the move knight to c3, it's a maybe more close game here. It's not so tactical, but at least we are not allowing here the move d5. So in the continuation, d6, preparing bishop to g4, a3, prophylactic move here by Pranav. He's not allowing some b4 ideas by Magnus Carlsen. h6, also prophylactic move by Magnus, and now a new prophylactic move by Pranav, again not allowing to get pinned by the move bishop to g4. Rook to b8, a preparation to play a5, b4, bishop to e3, d4 is now the main line. We have now rook to e8, and this is a cool move by Magnus Carlsen. It's sort of a must move because you are competing on the e file, although so far nothing is going on the e file. But if d4 happens after e takes d4 and bishop to f8, that Magnus will play in a couple more moves, look at this, the e file could be opened and actually the e4 pawn could be in danger. So it's really cool move that you have to understand in the Ruy Lopez theory. So rook to e1, you see Pranav understands that he could maybe have the e4 pawn as a weakness, so that's why he first plays rook to e1 and then he's trying to launch the d4 breakthrough. We have bishop to f8, now comes d4, and after e takes d4, knight takes d4. Notice that the knight is hanging on c6, and now Magnus maybe deviates from some standard lines. He plays bishop to b7. He protects the knight. He leaves now the square f5 unprotected. Maybe a slightly better way to go was to play knight to a5, hitting the bishop, also preparing maybe c5, but also to have a control further on the square f5. This was maybe slightly better, but okay, still playable line here by Magnus. Bishop to b7. Knight to f5 by Pranav. He's occupying a very important square, where the knight is of course attacking the g7, but also the very important h6 pawn. We have now knight to e5. F3 played by Pranav. F4 would be maybe too rushed here because knight to c4 could happen and then you could have this vulnerable e4 pawn. So that's why F3 first fixing the structure. Now Magnus goes with the move c5, launches now a flank attack on the queen side. We have bishop to f2 and after c4 bishop to a2. Now Magnus breaks the position with the move d5. And actually this was the way to go. Magnus found here actually the best continuation so far. Both of them I think played an outstanding game. Although, because of the better piece activity, black should be even slightly better. Magnus kicked away simply this bishop to the edge of the board, paralyzed the bishop. Magnus has here really a beautiful activity, and now with the move d5, he found this liberating line. In my opinion, if black now plays the game correctly, here black should be slightly better. So now Pranav goes with f4. He attacks the knight, Magnus steps back, which is perfectly fine, and now comes maybe even the critical moment of the game. Here Pranav plays the normal e5, and here you have to be really a stockfish, or you have to be, I don't know, Paul Murphy or Mikhail Tal. And we have to say it's a fast time format. You cannot really see everything on the board. But actually, I wanted to show what Magnus should have played. He played knight to e4, which I think 99% of every player would play. But actually, the way to go is even to sacrifice the piece. After move d4, for instance, knight takes d4 can happen. And look at this. We pick up now the pawn on f4. After e takes f6, and now we play rook to e1. And whatever you do, for instance, you play bishop to e1, the queen is coming into the game on f6, and this is devastating for white. Notice that the bishop and the rook are all of game. We cannot count these two pieces that they are playing. So it's almost like Magnus would play with an extra piece here, because the two pieces are paralyzed. And look at this, we have now beautiful attack on the round of square g2. The rook is coming on d8, the knight gets paralyzed on d4. So I'm not seeing good ways how to defend this position. The bishop can also come into the game, so the engine gives here a +5 evaluation in black's favor. Even if you pick up here after rook to e1, even if you pick up the rook with the queen, the same idea will happen. We play queen to f6. You can play maybe knight to e4, but look at this, the queen is getting more and more active into the game. You can play maybe even knight to g3, getting new defenders into the game, and of course you're trying to trade off the queens. But actually with queen to d5, I'm not sure how we're going to defend this position. Even if you play knight to f3, knight takes g2 is going to happen. So it's simply too much pressure. Again, the rook will come into the game, so it's almost game over here for black. So after move e5, as we said, Magnus should have played simply d4, but as I said, this is simply just a pervert stockfish line that I'm showing you. Maybe in longer time formats, Magnus would probably see it, would probably play this counter attack. But after move e5, here Magnus goes with knight to e4. We have knight takes e4, d takes e4, and now the queen has this beautiful square with the support of the knight. There are now several tactical possibilities here around the square h6. Magnus goes with queen to d2, and now I liked really Pranav's game. He activated every piece. So he played now bishop to e3, the queen took this pawn, it doesn't matter, but now with the rook to e2, Magnus' queen got really kicked away. The queen is now paralyzed on the edge of the board, and now Pranav includes the new piece into the game. Look at this, all of the pieces of whites are maybe on the optimal squares already. Of course, the bishop on a2 is not so good, but maybe later it can be improved with bishop to b1 or b3, maybe our opportunities. But we have here 5 pieces that are really in perfect shape, and you can guess what happens when you have such a beautiful activity. You can expect really some cool tactical shots, because after a rook to d8 that Magnus Carlsen played, there is a certain rule in chess that says when you have your pieces on the most active squares, then it's time to push pawns or search for tactics, if you cannot improve, of course, the minor pieces or all of your pieces. So now it's this kind of a position where we have, as I said, all of our pieces on the best squares. Moves like bishop to b1, in order to improve maybe your piece further, would be simply too slow, because probably black is going to include the bishop into the defense. Or a pawn move that could happen is maybe the move h4, trying maybe h5. But again, it's simply too slow. So that's why, as I said, you cannot improve really your pieces. You cannot push pawns. So it's time to search for tactics. And of course, Pranav saw that immediately. He plays now the brilliant knight takes h6. After g takes h6, now the pawn is dancing here. The pawn is rolling f5. Bishop to c6. Magnus is trying to somehow defend his position. But now this beautiful e6 intermediate defensive move, which is not allowing, of course, some tactics here. Even if you play something like, I don't know, f takes e6, then of course queen to g6 is going to happen. Bishop to g7 is going to met with f6. If you play something like king to h8, then still f6. If you play rook to d7, look at this, f7 is going to happen. So it's simply a game over. You have to sacrifice now the rook and you can resign after a couple of moves. So as I said, after move e6 that Pranav played, Magnus goes with rook to d1. He's trying to somehow maybe get the queen back into the game, but it was simply too late. Here Pranav plays e takes f7. We have king to f7, queen takes g6. The king has to step back here to e7, bishop to c5. Here Pranav includes a new piece into the game, king to d8. We have now bishop to b6, king to d7, and now a beautiful move b3, which of course creates new open files. For instance, if somehow the king escapes, we can also use the rook on the c file. Now it was the way to go to maybe include also the bishop into the game. Although queen to f7 is also an opportunity, nothing wrong with this move, but Pranav found also this other beautiful idea, b3. We have rook takes f1, king takes f1, f8, c takes b3. Now we have rook to d2, and in this position Magnus Carlsen resigns. So instead of this move c takes b3, maybe Magnus should have played queen to a3. After rook to d2, at least you can cover yourself with the bishop. But look at this, actually b takes c4 is also now an opportunity. The king is simply naked here. The king is really under crossfire here after e3 that you can maybe play. Now we can have this beautiful check. You can maybe try this kind of idea, but after a couple of trades of pieces, look at this, the rook is hanging, so we have now this passer. This one is weak, so simply too much pressure. Even if you reach the endgame stage, still we have a 3 versus 1 situation here on the king side, so whatever black does, it's a winning game here for white. So incredible game by Pranav, really great performance. As I said, he finished on the 3rd place, but it doesn't matter, he had the same point count like Alireza and Hikaru. Only additional criteria made him on the 3rd place. He is now the rising star, I think, among these other Indian top grandmasters that we see already, Pragananda, Gukesh, Arjun Ergaisi, Nihal. So it's simply a beautiful era for us. So as I said, in the next couple of 10 years, maybe we can expect in the top 10 to see 4, maybe even 5 players from India, who knows, but this is simply now their time. So okay, great game. I hope that you enjoyed it. Really cool tournament it was yesterday. The title Tuesdays on chess.com. If you want to see more of this rising stars, you can also check out my commented chess games, some other cool games that we have analyzed before. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos and what to say. Chess is the best, of course.